This slide is of a pictogram and a photograph of a cross-section of the coronary artery. This appeared in the New England Journal of Medicine in 1987. Seymour Glagov presented this information, and to me it is truly astounding. This is the original lumen size of the artery, and as atheroma was laid down, it just affected the wall, causing remodeling of the artery, getting larger, pushing out. It has to reach a certain point before stenosis occurs. This is truly astounding because a person can have all this plaque, all this atheroma in the wall, which is vulnerable to inflammation and rupture, and yet go in for an angiogram and have a normal angiogram. And indeed, that is what happened. People would have normal angiograms and die the next day because of a rupture of the plaque. This graph shows it very nicely. Here is a normal artery without any plaque. As the plaque starts to go in the wall here, the lumen size is the same. As more plaque starts to develop here, the lumen size is the same. This is called remodeling of the artery without affecting the lumen. Finally, when you develop so much plaque and the artery cannot expand anymore, it starts encroaching on the actual lumen. This is very late in the disease. You need about 75% of obstruction of the artery before you have a positive nuclear stress test. The angiogram will be negative here, here, and here, and even however, it will show 50% stenosis here, which in the past nothing has been done about. You do not put stents for that. You might put a stent in here. What's important is that we want to find this subclinical atherosclerosis, and even this at 50% is subclinical atherosclerosis. 100,000 people a year in the United States outside the hospital die of sudden death because this plaque and this plaque become inflamed and rupture and cause sudden death. And yet it's missed on the angiogram, and this is missed on the angiogram, but this is also missed on the nuclear stress test. What can we do? Well, we can get a coronary calcium score with a CT scan, Siemens Rapid Slice or EBCT, and it'll find this plaque because usually as you get older, calcium gets laid down. For young people, however, this calcium may not be laid down yet. This is why we do a CIMT, or a carotid intimal thickness study. Here is my fourth CIMT. As you can see, the date is December 17th, 2009. It was done at KU Med Center. This study shows my carotid artery. They measure this segment here. It is done with software in the computer. This is not a duplex or triplex carotid angiogram. This just measures the atheroma in the wall right there. This is the report from Dr. Moriarty. He writes grossly unremarkable. However, when he went over the test with me, he showed me that I was actually quite good. Here's my average CCA mean, and I'm below the study people for my age, which is right here. I'm below it. This is the 75th percentile. Again, for my maximum thickness, again, I appear to be low. Here's my age group. Oh, pardon me, my age group is 58, which is right about here. and there I am, and I'm way below the average. If you were to take this line across, and then the difference between here and here, I'm below the 75 percentile. As I said, I've had 4 of these CIMTs. The first one was at a lipidology conference in June 2007. To my surprise, I had the thickness in the carotid artery of a 55-year-old, or 56, that's how old I was then, but my right was a 33-year-old. So they told me we use the older one. I was on statins and Enduracin, which is niacin. My LDLP was 1008 that time. I then went on to repeat the test in my town on a different machine. Instead of arteriovision, I had a Philips. They say you can't go from machine to machine. However, after this period of time, which is a year and 1 month, I really seemed to have regression of the atheroma in my neck. I was just happy I didn't have progression, as I am diabetic. Of course, I did have a very good LDL particle number of 534. I had gone off of Enduracin in January because I have intermittent atrial fibrillation, and I was worried this was making it worse. Then, a year and 4 months later, on the same machine, I had it done again. And on the right side, I actually increased 2/100ths, and on the left, I decreased 4/100ths. Again, I'm pretty happy with this result. Academicians would say this is why we can't use this machine, because it's not extremely accurate. But for me, it showed that by keeping my LDLPs very low, 500, 700, I had been able at least to prevent progression. Now, I did want to double check my hometown Topeka CIMT machine with the academic machine at KU Med Center with Dr. Moriarty. He uses a slightly different software. They take the average mean, and I was 0.599. Now, I'm not using the average maximum because I don't have any of that on the previous scans, so I don't know what to do with it. But the average mean seems to correlate with these other numbers. In any event, it's much less than that number, of course, and it's much less than this number. So while this may not be at the level of sophistication that the academics use when they measure regression in the various trials that we hear of recently, such as Arbiter 6, where a thousandth of a change makes a significant difference. For the clinical purposes, I think this is a useful test, and certainly if it had progressed continually larger and larger, I would certainly have been much more concerned and have checked all my other risk factors much more carefully. For example, I've lost 80 pounds and I've gained back 48 pounds of it, and yet I haven't seemed to have gotten much worse, showing that with exercise, and I do exercise about 2 hours a day, and keeping the LDLP low, those might be more important factors than just the weight. I have been able to stay off insulin during this time because of the exercise, and my hemoglobin A1C usually stays below 7.